Welcome to Miss Win Checking In, the space where creativity meets healing. Here, we explore the path of mindful expression through the lens of writing, wellness, and soulful storytelling. Take a moment to pause and ask yourself, how are you feeling right now? If you're watching this on YouTube, drop an emoji in the comments to represent how you're feeling. And then let's check in at the end. Let's take a deep breath, tune in, and prepare to create from within. Hey, it's Miss Win checking in back with another meaningful episode. Today I have Miss Rashadah, and we are talking about self expression and mental health. Hey, Rashadah, what do you know about those topics?
Oh Lord, I know a lot. My name is Rashadah Jordan. I've been a physician assistant specifically in psychiatry, seeing ages 5 and up for the past 6 years. I'm very vocal about my opinions online, and a lot of people met me when I was going through PA school and I was sharing my experience. So I'm just excited for the opportunity to cater to you and your audience today and share all the things about self-expression and mental health.
Yeah, let me tell you about this lady here. I just met her today. And I said, "Oh, what are we talking about?" She gave me a beautiful list of things. And so I said, "You know what? That's self-expression right there." And I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I love it. And so let's see. Well, what do you want to talk about today? I want to give you the floor because I think that you are full of just knowledge. And I
Uh-huh.
don't want to confine it to just this box that I've created. I want to give you
Yes.
a chance to, let's expand on that self expression and mental health. I will
Yes.
say that this might be one of the first times where I said to my guests, express yourself. So express
Express yourself.
yourself. Yeah.
Yes. So, goodness, I think it's only right to start with my personal story. I
Mhm.
think my brand is all about resilience, and I really didn't learn how much resilience meant to me and really what the
Mhm.
word was and how I can relate to it. I think I've been through not everything because I know other people, when you think your story is bad, it can always get worse. But
Yeah.
I've been through a good bit of stuff. When I was growing up, single parent household, my mother was a nurse and she took care of me, and later my brother came best she could, but she had her own stuff that she had to work on. And if anybody can relate out there, some black moms, I mean all moms, but especially black moms, that's something different. I
Mhm.
thought when you're a child, you don't know anything else but what's presented to you. So I loved my mother like a child should love their mother, but I wasn't receiving that love back from her. And it took me 27 years until I started my own journey in mental health and starting counseling and starting medications to actually unfold Pandora's box and look at it for what it was and not what I wanted it to be, not what I wished
Mhm.
it would be. And I learned that my mother was my first op, like ever. I'm the
Mhm.
oldest, being the oldest daughter, it has its own constraints and confinements, but definitely learning, like getting to know your mother more without actually like getting to know her face to face. It was the therapist and the psychologist and the people that were a part of my team that opened my eyes to see that my mother hurt people do hurt people. And my mother hurt me because of the things that she did not heal from. And so I had to, oh, being a generational curse breaker is heavy work. That's heavy work. Deciding to not dish out the same thing that was done to you when you have kids, or to not be triggered or to respond in a different light. This is uncharted territory. So I had
Yes.
to have a whole team behind me to explain things to me. And it was some days that was harder than others because my mother, she was, I mean, there's a line between discipline and abuse, and I think I got a mixture. And so
Mhm.
that scarred me. And I didn't know that I had PTSD. I didn't know that I was somewhat depressed because of that. I was anxious, and how all of that kind of played into my life story and how I am as an adult and how I handle relationships, even work relationships, like everything. And it just came full circle. So when I started this journey, it was hard.
Yeah.
But I'm happy I did it because now I understand myself a whole lot more. And I think where me and my mother are right, like today, we're in a different place. But the best part about it is because I know she's not at the place I'm at. So I have to meet her where she is. And I'm okay with the fact that in my mind and everything I've done with my team, I've made our relationship better without her not even knowing half the battle of what I had to go through.
Mhm.
So I'm going to pause because I can talk, 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 just in case you have any questions for me on anything that I might have said.
No, that was good. What did you say? I wish I would have wrote it down.
Yes.
You said something to the effect of, yeah, hurt people do hurt people. And a lot of times, yeah, as children, we don't really realize it until we become adults.
Right.
And we also gotta, as much as advocate for mental health and going to therapy and getting that help, it's
Uh,
hard work.
it is.
It's hard work. Like
It is.
this whole podcast, we've been talking about, mental health and expressing yourself and creativity. But I really want to kind of amplify that this is hard work. It's going
It
to take you
is.
out of your comfort zone. There are going to
Right.
be stressors
Yes.
that arise from trying to heal, from trying to help yourself live a better life, especially as a parent. I knew, and that was one of the things that set me on my healing journey. Is I have a daughter. She's 10 years old now. And
Yes.
I'm like, hell no, the things that I experienced growing up, what? No, I do not
Yes.
want her to experience those same things and those same people. I've even
Right.
had to cut people off that I knew. When you said, a mix of discipline and abuse, I'm like, huh? Okay, I think as a lot of children who maybe grew up in the 80s and the 90s, we dang sure experience a mix of discipline and abuse.
Yes.
Um, and we can even go as far to say that maybe our parents didn't even realize that what they were doing was that.
No. Because that's the way they were raised. So they only
Yeah.
do what they know. And it's sad. But then again, it's like this big old learning project for us
Mm-hmm.
now. And we have to make the decision to continue or to change the status quo. And
Mm-hmm.
it's probably more days than not that you feel like you want to revert back to what you know, and then you got to catch yourself. So it's this whole thing with nobody leading the example but your team, like your therapist, medication
Yeah.
management. But then like they're not available. We wish they were, but they have other patients and they're not always available 24/7 to walk you through. So I guess that's when some of those skills are self-developed. And you just got to take what they taught you, apply it, but then it's also a big learning experience, just you versus you, like just you with you on yourself.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, the days where I've had to come through, and it might have been a week or two in between my sessions with my therapist. So when I finally reconnect with her and she says, well, how has things been? Update me. How have things been going? I have to write things down so I can replay it for her
Yeah.
so I don't miss anything. And I'm just like, okay, this is what I learned about myself. Or you'll be proud of me. This is what I implemented in my life, and you were right about this. Or maybe I don't understand this part of myself as much as I thought I did. And yeah, all about being vulnerable and transparent. And I'm gonna tell you now, if this would have been maybe like at least 3 to 5 years ago and we had this conversation, I would not have been able to even talk as freely as I am now. It was
Mm-hmm.
the healing hurt, but it set me free at the same time. So I feel more like I have space to be transparent and open and authentic to who I am. But
Mhm.
before, I probably couldn't even get through a sentence without crying because it hurt so bad. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm so lost. What does this mean for me? Where am I right now in my journey? And who am I? And what do I like about myself? What do I not like? Like, I couldn't answer any of those questions. So, therapy
Mhm.
really did help me a whole lot.
Yeah, it's so funny. I just had a therapist on here. Shout out to
Yeah,
Rashad Young. He said, but he also we had to come up with a definition for healing. He said, I don't think therapy heals. And I said,
yeah,
what? You don't think therapy heals? I said, okay, I can get down with that. I said, no, I've spoken with another therapist, and she said for her healing was about having better days. And so
yeah,
in reflecting, and what you just did right now is in reflecting, you are having better days. You're able to express yourself better. You're probably able to show up as a better parent. If you are, if you do have children, you're able to just be better. And I
better.
said that's how I measure like my healing and where I'm at with my own like emotional stuff and things like that is, am I better in this area? In a lot of areas, yes. In some areas, hell no.
Yeah,
Okay. I
exactly.
still got some stuff to work on.
Still work
But
in progress.
exactly. But because I'm better in these areas, those other areas I know, okay, it's not as heavy because it's
Right.
like I'm unpacking some of
Yes,
this stuff. It's not, this bag ain't as heavy as it was 10 years ago.
right.
I've been doing the work. And like you said, it sets you free. It
Yes,
really does. And I think, it is so important. Um, if it wasn't important, I would not be having this conversation. That's just how I feel. That it's
right.
not, we're not talking about nothing that's not important. That's just, how I roll. And
Yes,
so, this podcast is, I hope people find something meaningful and can take away some gems and just a different perspective on, things that we all just go through in life, and one of those things is just dealing with your emotions. Like, any tips on that? Just how to deal with your emotions outside of, because we
oh,
done heard writing a million
yes.
times. Give
Oh,
give me
yeah.
something else besides journaling, please, please.
Yes. So there's this wheel that Sarah started. Sarah, if y'all know TD Jake's daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, she brought up how she is undoing her generational curse or trauma. And so with her daughters, they decided to pack up this feelings wheel. And if you Google like the feelings wheel, a lot of therapists use that too. I guess they use it more with kids or they use it with adults.
Mm,
I use it because sometimes I can be angry, but really I'm not angry. It's coming across as anger. I'm sad
mhm,
or I'm disappointed. And the feelings will, you start from the outside and you go inward, and it helps you better express yourself. So I don't believe it's just for kids. I believe
mm,
everybody can find value in the feelings wheel. And like I said, you can just do a simple Google search, find an image that you like. If you're one of those tangible people, I'm pretty sure on Etsy, Amazon, but I think we're still off Amazon. So Etsy, other places.
mhm,
They have it, or if
mhm.
you have a printer at home, you can print the image and then just pull it up and you're like, okay, what is the emotion I'm feeling now? And then just go inward from that and it'll show you what you're really feeling. And then
Yeah.
help you be able to pinpoint where that could have come from. Were you triggered? Was this a conversation you were having? Is this something that occurred in your day? Did somebody do something unfair to you, et cetera, et cetera? But it
Mhm.
helps you further get deeper, that deeper connection within yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because if we can't have a deep experience of ourselves, we cannot give that to other people. And I am seeing
Yes.
that. I am seeing
Yes.
that in my relationships. I'm like, gosh, I desire for deeper connections, deeper relationships. And I'm finding that a lot of the people that I'm connected to may not be there.
Right.
And it does two things for me. It makes me kind of sad because I'm
Right.
thinking, oh, this is someone that I really love and care about and really adore, but they're not even deep with themselves. They don't even allow themselves to, like, maybe they don't fully know themselves, or they are afraid to do that work to get to know themselves or to heal. So
Yes.
I feel like that, but then too, I give them grace. I'm like, you know what? I'm
Right.
still gonna accept you as you are, as long as
Right.
you're not harming me.
Right.
Um, because I've been there before, and it's like,
Right.
okay, I can give them grace because I know, shoo, I was a hot
Mhm.
mess just years ago.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and someone gave me grace, and I'm like, I can pass on to those that I love. I can give them grace. Yeah.
Me too. And that's a big part of it. Like my therapist had to tell me I had to give my mother grace for where she was and who
Mm.
she is. And then there's another book, if I have any readers out there, there's a book called excuse my lingo, Wise as Fuck. There's a book
Okay.
literally that is the title of the book. And it was I think it's the first or second chapter because I'm listening to it on Audible. But
Okay.
the guy, he has like this Irish accent and he curses all the way through the book. So I'm sorry in advance. But he did mention like he had an estranged relationship with his mother. And the relationship with them two didn't change until he made the decision to change it. And when he did make the decision to change it, it meant changing himself. He didn't even
Yeah.
let his mother know that, he wanted this. He didn't sit down and have a talk with her. He decided to make the choice to love her for who she was and where she was. He decided to fall head over heels with his mother just as she was. Nothing changed about her, but everything changed about their relationship when he decided to do that. And she's completely clueless and in the dark, but
Mm.
everybody around them, even her, they could see that their relationship changed. But nobody
Mhm.
really knows what changed but him because he made that internal decision. It changed their relationship forever. She had passed away, I believe, in the book. But if she didn't, I'm not wishing death on her. Please forgive me. But
Yeah.
I think she did pass away. But before she did, they had a good relationship.
Hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. And sometimes that's what it takes. You
Yes.
have to decide. And sometimes I sit and I think about, okay, the relationships in my life, just in my reflecting. I do write, so we can talk about writing. But
Yes.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that feelings wheel because that's really important. No one has brought that up yet.
Hmm.
But I sit and I think about my own relationships, and it's like, how important is this relationship to me?
Yes.
Is this someone that I can just cut off and I wouldn't give a damn about, or is this someone that, yes, I would be hurt, like really hurt to my core if I cut this relationship off?
Right.
And that's just kind of how I've had to move. I've had friendships of 20 years where
Yes.
I had to sit and I had to reflect and think. We've been on girls trips where these women, it's like their insecurities would play a role in our experiences on our girls trips with men, and I'm like, we are grown women, we are in our 30s, most of us have kids, and y'all are acting a fool. And it was these relationships I had to cut off because it became
Yes.
dangerous. It became, oh,
Mhm.
you're gonna act a fool in front of people we don't even know because
Right.
they're men. Oh
Right.
no, I could no longer be connected to that and would
Mm.
try to bring up the issues and would be met with, "Oh, you're mean." Girl, I don't got time for it. No, I'm setting a boundary. I'm telling you,
Oh,
it's not okay for
yes.
you to act a fool in front of the male sex for attention. That's
Right.
what we're not gonna do.
We're not going to do
Not
that.
with me, maybe on your own time.
Yeah.
And those relationships just ended, but it became because I saw for myself that there was no growth there with them, and because they weren't growing, it became dangerous for myself to
Yeah.
continue to be connected to them. And so I had to think, okay, am I going to be harmed? Yeah. And so that became like a big thing, like, girl, you could be hurt because these people
Yes.
that you love and you care for and have known each other, have grown up with each other for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
it just is not going to work out. And that was hard. I had to grieve, losing friendships, but
Yeah.
my own safety was huge.
Yeah.
There was no more grace to give. And I think that
Right.
having that discernment to be able to say, okay, when to give grace and when
Yes.
to
To kind
give
of.
the peace sign, just be out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree. I agree. I think There's always things to say about like when you grow and when you're evolving, especially as an adult, some people will make that decision to stay in something because of the time they invested.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we've been friends, like you mentioned, for 20 years. Am I really going to throw this away? Because 20
Yeah.
years is a long time.
A
Maybe I should
long
hold on
time.
to it, but it's no longer
Mhm.
benefiting you anymore. So I can agree with that. I can agree with
Mhm.
that. It's not about the time. I can look back on the time and say, ah, I'm so grateful you were who you were to me
Yeah.
while we had our relationship, but this is the end of the road.
Yeah.
And I can look back and be grateful for the role the relationship played in my life, but I'm not gonna hold on to it just because,
Mhm.
just because.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that for me that was like a pivotal point in my life where I was in therapy and it became about like what are you worth? Like are you worthy of like do you think you deserve that? Do you think you
Yes.
deserve that activity and those experiences that you were having with these people? And it was like no, I don't think I deserve. I think I deserve something different. Maybe
Right.
not better, but better for me, yeah, but different.
Yeah.
I deserve something different. And
Right.
so I remember my therapist being like, well, what are you going to do about it? And it was like, ooh,
Yes.
I guess like, but she wasn't pushing me to do anything. She was just like,
Right.
well, what do you want to do about it? Like, this is what you said. And this is what you're telling me, and I'm asking you, do you think that's what you deserve? What are you gonna do about it? And it was just like at the time, I was like, I'm gonna just skate it out. Like
Right.
I'm gonna just see us, and it became like, well, they will distance themselves. And
Right.
sure enough, a situation arose where me and a friend had a falling out about. I think during this time it was COVID,
Right.
and she thought that I had given her COVID, but a week before she got sick, and I was also sick. A week before we were
Uh-huh.
all sick with COVID, we were
Yes.
downtown LA having brunch. I said, "Oh, you
Yeah.
don't think that you got sick from us going to brunch? Oh, okay. Oh, you think it was me because I sneezed at brunch. So you think that I showed up to brunch sick, gave it to me, I gave it to everybody,
Yes.
and oh, okay, but I feel like she used that just to tear me down. And one thing that I'm real big on, and I tell everybody this: you can be angry and you can be upset, but when you start getting
Right.
disrespectful, I gotta let you go. I gotta let you go. I don't deal
Yeah.
with the. I'm not a bitch. I'm not like where
Mm-mm.
you're not gonna talk to me like that.
Yeah.
So, and that's just what it was. And then I had to go back and tell my therapist, well, maybe I should have cut it off sooner, but this is what
Yes.
happened. And my
Yeah.
therapist said, well, I'm proud of you for recognizing in that moment that, you know what, you deserve friends who can disagree with you
Right.
in a respectful manner.
Right.
And you can now articulate that as well, because something that I learned is I didn't have the words a lot of times to express myself, to say how I was feeling. And so that's why I'm like, I'm so glad that you mentioned that feelings will, because I think for a lot of us we
Mm-hmm.
just don't have the words. Like, let's talk
Yeah.
about that, finding the words to say.
Yes, and if you're coming from a household that didn't teach you those skills when you were growing up, you feel even more lost. And then so
Mhm.
when you find out there are words for it or there is a level of emotional intelligence and you don't have it, then you're like, well, who do I need to talk to help me? So here
Mhm.
comes the books and here comes the YouTube
Yeah.
videos and here comes the podcast, and potentially therapy. But I think the biggest starting point for people is just to admit that they don't have the words, they don't have the skills, they weren't, and acknowledge it. A
Mhm.
lot of people live in denial and they get upset when you bring it up that they might not have what they need to make it. What do you mean I don't have what I need to make? Who are you
Yeah.
talking to? Da, 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 da. My
Mhm.
mother, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not saying that, your mother or your father didn't do X, Y, Z, but I'm saying what I see right now based off of how you're behaving, it doesn't seem like you have a whole lot of emotional intelligence. Else you wouldn't have made that person or me feel like this.
Yeah.
So I think it's a way to say things, but I think if they don't have the maturity, either way you say it, they're going to get offended and you become their problem. So I believe in that. At that point, we just go ahead and distance ourselves. I will pray for you that you one day get the skills you need to acknowledge that you need to work on something. But I'm not attacking you, I'm just trying to make you aware. But people, everything is easily offensive today.
Yeah. Everything
Everything.
is, ooh, that is, ooh, that's a word right there. Everything is easily offensive today, especially when you're expressing yourself, especially when you're
Yes.
articulate and can say what it is that you need or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It can be, I remember the other day, and on these podcasts, I do tend to share a lot about myself, but this is
Yes.
just so people get like real life examples.
Yes.
The other day, I was having a conversation with someone about my situation with my child's father. I said, look, he told me one thing and I didn't like it, and that was the end of that. I said, I've held it down for 10 years on my own. I'm
Right.
Gucci. And
Yes.
I don't care who you are, what you got going on. I said, even at one point, I was getting ready to cut off my mother. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not here to play with nobody about me,
No.
and definitely not about my child. And they
Yes.
were shocked that I said that so clear is what you could not misunderstand me. I said it as clear
Yeah.
as day, and they were
That's
just
clear.
like, all they could do was sip their drink and say, okay. I said, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because this is my choice. This is my child. This is my situation. And this is what I'm not going to put up with. And don't
yeah,
nobody mean that much more to you than yourself and your child.
and my child, yeah,
Mm, no.
yeah. Yeah. And as parents, we can understand that, right? Nobody, if you're a good parent, you might say, well, my man might mean more because he paid a bit. But, well, I'm not really talking to you. I'm talking about those that really are mothers, really those that are fathers who would do the most for their child, and do the most for themselves. And that's
Yes.
kind of a part I want to talk about because, and I've seen it. I've seen children mimic their parents in the way that they talk about themselves. Kids
Mhm.
questioning, "Oh, am I good enough?" Da 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 da, and the parents trying to tell them yes, but at the same time, the parent is not. They don't think that they're good themselves. And
Right.
and to me, I'm like, are you trying to be humble or what is this? Is this really an issue or do you feel like you need to be humble for people
Right.
to like you? Like, but I end up just leaving that alone because
Mm,
to a lot of people I could come off as cocky just because look,
uh,
I know I got it going on when it comes to publishing books. Like I'm in my bag when it comes to that. I know
uh-huh.
that I enjoy being communicative. I like to communicate. I like to do podcasts. And so I know I'm in my bag with that. And to
Yeah.
some people, they're like, well, you should be more humble. No,
For
I'm not
what?
humble. I just would not be me,
Yeah.
you know? And so
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that. I'm just talking now. But
Yeah, no, I can piggyback off that. Like people, they again with the offense, like they think that um you're stunting on them if you say, "Oh, well, I publish books and I have a podcast," and then they feel insecure some type of way because
mm,
they don't have those accolades, so then they get mad towards you and then they envy you. And then you got to be careful with that too. Lord have mercy, because there's so many people you think are your friends and they
mhm,
really envy, like they're a op low key, and then it's like that's why it's so important to have discernment and pay attention to how you
mm,
feel when you get around people, because if your inside is your spirit trying to tell you, this don't feel good, you should probably listen. Don't learn the
yeah,
hard way, because people will show you, but then by that point, after you've seen it and you got confirmation, well, spirit tried to tell you 6 months earlier that this person wasn't who you thought they were, and now you hurt even more and even more
yeah,
emotionally involved with this person because you couldn't cut them off.
mhm,
Like, yeah, no, pay attention to your discernment. Hallelujah. Because some people will hate
yeah,
you, and I blame it on, I don't blame it on them. I blame it on the way they were raised. I put it
mm,
there because it's just like they don't have the skills or the example or whatever they needed to be this upstanding citizen of the world. We all have to learn to get there. We all have to learn how to undo how we were raised. And that takes time. And that takes vulnerability and transparency. And it's just like, if they don't know that they need to find a therapist. How do you get started? What does this
Yeah.
mean? It's a whole journey. So you just pray for those people.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I used to limit the way that I would express myself.
Yes.
Now I feel like I'm in a place where, look, I'm gonna say what I gotta say without being worried so much
Right.
about judgment, without being
Right.
worried so much about, oh my God, I feel so guilty for saying da 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 da. Like, I'm mindful. I'm mindful of others, but I don't let it limit what I got to say. Like, I have
Yes.
to express myself, or then I become, it does impact my mental health. If I'm not
Mhm.
expressing myself, if I'm always worried about being misunderstood, sometimes I just say stuff and I be like, look, guys, if they got ears to hear, they will hear. If they don't,
Yes,
they won't. And then
they
I
won't.
just I did my part in expressing myself, for also for my mental well-being, because I know what it's like to not do that, and it just
Right.
doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel
Yes.
good mentally, and it just doesn't feel good inside my body. And so then it's like,
Right.
okay, I can no longer dim myself. I can no longer be so worried about how people are going to receive the message. All I could do is do my best to communicate it, get it
Mhm.
out, whether that be through writing, because I do have a lot of authors in my circle, who are worried about, oh, are they gonna like my book, da da da
Yeah.
da, and these things become hindrance. They become writer's blocks.
Right.
When in reality, if we can just say, you know what I say is, don't think just right. Don't think
Yeah.
just right.
Just right.
And when you get done, then you could come back and try and make sense of it all. But don't think just right. Express yourself, because it does impact your mental health. Have you been in a situation like that where you kind of like limited yourself, and like how did you
Oh, yes.
navigate that? How did you work through that?
So, as a brand new PA right out of school, I worried a lot about, okay, this is my first job. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to offend the patient. And most of that came from not having some of the knowledge that I gained over the years to know like what the laws are and what's
Mm,
possible and what's not. Straight out the gate, as a brand new provider, I just thought if I breathe wrong and the patient didn't like it, they can just file a complaint. I done lost my license. I can't practice
mm,
no more. I don't have a job and everything's going down the drain. And I was in a constant state of anxiety until I learned there's four statutes that have to be met for you to even get sued for malpractice, and breathing wrong isn't one of them. And if
okay.
they can't meet if they can't meet all four statutes, then
Hmm.
the whole case get thrown out in the court of law. So I'm just like, oh, so I was worrying and making
Mm.
myself anxious and operating under stress for no reason. And then another thing was I forgot I was grown. I hate to say that, but I forgot I was grown. So when
Wow.
I graduated PA school, I was 24, and nobody talks about the transition from student to provider. So I was still
Mm.
operating like I was on rotations and like I was in school when you're get handed an assignment and then you turn the assignment in and you're looking for praise from your teacher or feedback saying, good job, you did a good job, you passed. And there wasn't none of that in my first job. So I had to first, like when I started in therapy, my therapist pointed this out, well, my psychologist pointed this out, but then like I had to come more self-aware of it. Like I don't do conflict. That had a lot to do with how I was raised and being
Mm.
a people pleaser. So I had to work on that. And when the more I didn't say what I needed to say in the moment to an authority figure or a supervisor and whoever, I would carry that home and I would get on the phone with my friend at the time, God bless her, and I would vent. for like at least an hour saying everything I should have said to the person I needed to say it to them. And then I would express how much like I was unhappy in my current job and I didn't feel like I could be myself because I was so worried about how they were going to take it because I was the only provider of color on the team and the first one that the company had ever hired.
Wow.
So I was just like, oh Lord, like I don't feel comfortable being in these spaces, but I don't feel comfortable completely being myself because I don't want you to take it out of context and out of character
Mm.
about who you perceive me to be because people already see this is my skin color and they already make up in their mind, oh, she must be this way or that way. But when I don't speak that way or when I don't behave that way, then they're like, oh. And then
Mm.
when I got the doctor in front of my name, then that really became like, oh, like people, they don't know how to take you. So they try to fill you out and try to see how much do you know. Let me use this big giant word and see if she knows what that means. And I'm gonna tell you straight up, if I don't know what it mean, I don't know what it mean, but that don't mean I'm any less knowledgeable than you. So it
Mm.
was a lot of inside work I had to do, but also me becoming more aware of my surroundings and knowing what I like as a provider and working in fields and what I don't like, and when it's time for me to put boundaries into place, and knowing that boundaries don't have to be confrontational. You can be tactful and just say, hey, I don't appreciate you speaking to me that way. I don't respond to that. But if you would like to rephrase that, or if you would like to have a meeting with so and so here, like we can talk about it, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
but it didn't have to be, I don't like who you talking to. Like, and that's what I thought
Yeah.
it had to be because that's
Mm.
all I saw growing up. So it was a lot of connection making that I had to make, but I'm happy I've been through that because if I was trying to do that while trying to be a provider nowadays, I think I would just throw in the towel. I just think I would be completely lost.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's true. Because I'm thinking about, I'm a recovering people pleaser, still recovering. And a lot
Yes,
of it was, ooh, I don't like confrontation. But there were
yes,
some events that confrontation was needed,
yes,
because it became like, if you do not confront this, what are you saying about how you feel about yourself? I love
yes,
myself. And a lot of
right.
people would get confused about, oh, really, you don't love yourself. You're allowing this. Yeah, so it was misaligned. And it was
Yes,
like, why aren't you addressing this person? Why are you just letting them roll over you? Why? Because I don't like confrontation. Well, what does
yes,
confrontation look like to you? Oh, I don't want to go off on nobody. You don't have to. There's a way to confront things. I'm so glad that you said that. There's a way to
yes,
confront things without
yes,
going off. Find the words, Now we got Chat GPT. Chat. How do
yes.
I put this
How
in a
do
in
I?
a better, give me some words to
Yes,
say, ma'am, you can go to hell. How do I say this
yes,
professionally?
professionally.
Yeah.
Yes, yep, professionally. And ChatGPT will help you out every time.
Don't be afraid. I know a lot of people do not like to use AI. You can use it for however you want to use it. And a lot
Right.
of times I will how do I tell a client that I ain't gonna be I go to bed at 8 o'clock. Do not like I'm not don't expect for me to respond, because back in the day I was always on it. One of the things
Yes,
that I value is just my quickness to respond, because I also
right.
like a quick response. And
Yes.
so, but I cut it off at a certain time. Look, if you have my
Yeah.
number, my phone goes on do not disturb after 8 o'clock. I got to get some sleep. I'm not the one
Hmm.
that you can call it at 2 o'clock in the morning. And
No,
my friends know I'm a good friend, but you can't call me at 2 a.m. I'm so
no.
sorry. I'm deep in a sleep.
Deep in a sleep.
Deep in a
Deep
sleep.
in a sleep.
And
I'll look
so,
at my phone when I get up.
yeah, I will holler back at you in the morning after 9 o'clock, because I got to have my coffee in the morning, and then I will get back to you.
Yes.
But it took that becoming self aware, and it took the other another point of view. Like, if I
Right.
was just to myself, I wouldn't think that anything was wrong. And I
Right.
don't know if I was in a community where people would have told me that I was wrong. And so I don't know, what do people like that have? Like, is there ever, and I would say, yeah, that there are times where
Yeah.
we are challenged and maybe it's indirectly, but
Right.
I'm not aware, or I don't recall any time where, like, when I was just just a mess, I don't
Right.
think people were comfortable challenging me because of the way that I responded.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And then I'm just like, okay, so how deep is this relationship though? Are you my ride or
Mm,
die? Are you honestly my best friend? Are you my
mm,
sibling? Or are you afraid of me? Or where do we stand in our
yeah.
relationship if you're afraid to tell me something that I need to hear? It's just like
Mm,
people say all the time, if your friends let you leave the house, you don't matter where you going, looking a mess, then they ain't your friends.
yeah.
And so I'm just like, well, how deep is our relationship if you think I'm just going to go off and be mad at you? Well, then do we really know each other then? If you think I'm that type person, that's not my personality at all. Or maybe it is where I am right now that you can't find the words to say, okay, I'm not trying to offend you. I love you to death, but I'm telling you this because I love you. You shouldn't
Mhm.
wear this dress
Mm,
tonight. Maybe you should wear this. There's nothing wrong with the dress that you have on, but at this time, this is what it's giving.
mhm.
And I know that you probably don't want to hear this, and I'm tr not trying to hurt your feelings, but I would be a bad friend, and if I let you walk out the house looking like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, some things are hard to hear, and sometimes
Mhm.
there is no tactful way to make people not be hurt. The truth hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My 10-year-old told me that the other day. I had to post it on Facebook. We were just talking. She said, Mom, sometimes being honest is rude. I said, yeah, sometimes being honest is rude. Yeah, you can find kind ways to say it. You could be sweet. You can find, like you said, tactful ways to say it. But
Right.
sometimes just being honest is rude. And so I said, well, do you think that's why people lie? And she said, yeah,
Yep.
that's why a lot of people lie because they don't want to be rude. And I
Mm,
said, well, girl, if there's ever anything you got to tell me or anything I ever had to tell you, know that I love you. And if it comes out rude, I'm so
yeah.
sorry. And so that was something that I have with her,
Yes.
because I shoot, and that's just how it is. But
Right. You
yeah,
know the church, like the church mothers, when they whip out that purse with gum and candy and they hand you a mint, take the mint.
okay,
There's a reason why they're handing you the mint.
yeah,
They
mm-hmm.
probably don't want to be rude by telling you that, we got some halitosis going on. So I'm just going to hand you a
Yeah,
mint and see if you take it. And if you take
mm-hmm.
it and chew it, then we're all happy. Now I don't have to sit next to you and smell the halitosis. And now your mouth probably feel better and the people around you. And so sometimes there's indirect ways to do things too. But the
Yeah.
church mothers, yes, they will let you know. You want a piece of gum? And be like, yeah.
Yes. Speaking of, shout out to my favorite church mother at work. I always call her Miss Felicia Rashad. She looks just
Yes.
like her, but her name
Oh,
is Miss Cassandra. Shout out to her. Your girl was
yes.
wearing some broken glasses at work.
Yes.
I might even have them. I'm gonna have to put it on the
Uh-huh.
screen after when I'm editing this. I was walking around with some broken glasses, and she came around. She said, "Girl, why? Where's the other piece to your glass? I didn't even have like the other piece right here. It was just I was just."
Oh,
I said, "I
Lord.
can't see. Like I have to see." She said, at least get the other piece on there. So I got the other piece. I taped it, came to work. She said, okay, now you got the other piece. She said, but you're still wearing these broken glasses. What's
Yes.
going on? I said, okay, I'm gonna get some new glasses. We had to take a mandatory like leave of absence from work for like 2 weeks or something. Girl, I bought those glasses. I bought these pair and I have another pair that I bought. Went to work, didn't like I seen her a couple times. She didn't notice, and then she noticed. She said, oh, you got new glasses. I said, yeah, I did. I said, after you talking about my glasses so much, I said, I did get a new pair of glasses. But I also had to tell her, thank you, one, for showing me love to a stranger. She didn't know me. All she knew was, we are skin folk. We look alike.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
she was like, I just seen I would tell my daughter the same thing. Girl, get you a new pair of glasses.
Yes.
Glasses are not that expensive. They were not. I was able to get 2 pair for $100. But
Yeah.
I had to tell her, I said, you know what? I said, what you witnessed though was
Uh-huh.
a transformation. Like
Yeah.
back then, I was just trying to survive. I was like, I just needed this job. I did not give a damn how I looked at work.
Yes.
I said, now I come looking more put together, presented.
Yes.
I
Yes.
said, yes, my daughter would like a stepdaddy. So part of it is that. Okay. But the other part is, yeah, I care. I'm able to care more about my appearance now that I'm not just
Right.
trying to survive. I said, what
Yes.
you witnessed was, yeah, just that transformation. Me going from surviving to now I can live, I can breathe a little bit. I
Yes.
said, I'm so grateful that she mentioned, like, girl, you got a job. You can go get some glasses now. Like,
Yeah.
she didn't say that directly, but that's how
Yeah.
I interpreted it, just from her subtle, girl, your glasses is hanging off your face.
Yeah. Yes, and sometimes we just need that, and I can agree with
Mhm.
that so much. I think last year I went through my little Job season, and I didn't even know. I was like, Job, until I started reading the book of Job,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's exactly what I went through. But I'm glad I did, because if I wouldn't have went through that, I would not have been, excuse me, I would not have been as close to God as where I am today. I
Mm,
needed that season of turmoil to bring me closer to him. And I'm
mm,
I'm thankful for it now looking back on it, but going through it, I was like, what is this? My whole life felt like it was falling apart.
yeah.
But sometimes sometimes the question really can't be answered as to why we're going through what we're going through until hindsight.
Yeah.
Until hindsight. But yes, I agree with that because I mean, even though the Job season was last year, but even sometimes this year, I'm just like, ooh, I'm still tiptoeing and walking on eggshells, and I'm just like, am I about to go through another Job season? Is
Mm,
this gonna end me here? Am I gonna go without this season? Is this coming into my season? Because you never know what somebody's going through. You never
yeah.
know where somebody is. You just can see the outside looking in. But she could have said, "Girl, what's wrong with da da da?" But I'm glad,
Yeah.
like she showed you love and kindness, like you said, but at the same
Mm,
time making you just more aware that hey, we're in a different season right now. I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and that's important. And I love it as well. Now I see her at work, we just be like, clack, 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 just kind of making jokes and stuff,
Yep.
walking back. Okay, glasses, I see you. And when I came the other day with a new pair of glasses, she said, oh, we're growing our
Yeah.
collection. Yes, ma'am,
Yes.
Miss Rashadah, I'm growing my collection. I said, yes, I am.
Yes.
She said, okay, okay, I see you, niece. I said,
Yes.
okay, I love it. I
I
love it.
love our people. I
You
love our
know?
people. You don't even have to know the person. You see somebody sharp
Right.
coming out from church, you be like, okay, Sue. Okay,
Okay.
Sue. They already know you talk about them. They like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I see you. Yep, I
Mm-hmm.
just love it. I love it.
Yeah, but I also wonder, like, if I was in a different mental space, like you said,
Yes.
some people can just get offended.
Yes.
And I heard someone say that we get offended by things that people say because some of what they're saying is the truth.
Yes.
Back to the truth
Hurt.
hurts. The truth can be rude.
It
And
hurt.
even if they are not being as direct,
Mm-hmm.
she could have said something about my glasses, just being kind, like, where's the other piece of your glass? And I could have got so offended by that,
Right.
but because what she was saying was the truth, but I was just like, I still was like, I don't care. That's just kind of how
Like,
it's operating.
yep, you worry about the wrong thing, man.
Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
I'm here. Like, I'm clocked in. I'm here. Did I
I'm
make it
doing
today?
my
I'm
work.
here.
Yes.
Yeah. But
Oh man. I
and
love
so
that.
I get it, the truth hurts, but I think that we have to pause,
Yeah.
before we get offended. I know in the
Yes.
Bible says be slow to offense. What does
Yes.
that look like? That looks like
Yes.
taking a pause. If
Right.
what they're saying is true, like my
Mhm.
therapist said, well, what are you gonna do about it? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you gonna do
Yes.
about it? Okay.
Respond,
Wow.
not react.
Right. Respond, not react.
Yes.
Yeah. What else? So I know we totally got off the question.
I know, we just chatting. Yes,
we
I'm
just
sorry.
talking. We just talking. So do you write books? How do you express yourself?
Yeah, so when I was younger in middle school, elementary school, I started writing poetry. And
Okay.
then I kept, because that was my form of self-expression when things got hard and I was dealing with the ops at home and the ops at school. That was the only way I could really like express myself is through poetry. And then when I was in PA school, I published a book, Unfold My Ashes, Silent Tears of My Rebirth. So
Mm,
I posted like I published that book. I had a word count that I had to hit every day until the book
mm,
was done. I had an editor that attended a church and he didn't charge me anything. He was really sweet. Read over it, looked over it, and then I had somebody I went to college with make the cover and everything just came together and I published the book. And I put my it was like a memoir for me. It was like I'm putting this on paper, I'm putting this out in the world and I'm letting it go because I'm no longer ashamed of what I've been through. I want to share it just in case anybody else is going through the same thing,
mhm,
but I didn't think long term about that. So, becoming
mm.
a PA and having patients, sometimes they Google you. And
Oh.
yeah, and I didn't know how many of my patients brought my book and read my book. Also, in toxic places, depending on where you work. Some people may Google you and find
Mhm,
that, and then they get the book and they read your story too. And instead of being inspired, they can use it against you. So I have experienced both, never from my patients, but always from people who maybe worked at the same facility or maybe we weren't on the same floor, the same department, but they're looking and scoping and think that they're doing some sort of snooping and they're like, what can I learn about her to use against her? And I'm like, well,
mhm,
if you're thinking of it that way, then I wouldn't have put it out there if I was embarrassed by it. Obviously, I'm putting it out there to help other people and to be transparent and create. So I'm just like, I'm not really bothered that you
mhm,
know X about me.
mhm,
Else, why would I have made it public? So it's just so yes, I wrote a book to help other people initially, and then it turned into other people using it, trying to use it for evil or embarrassment. But I'm never evil or I never get embarrassed about my story. I own my truth. And
mhm,
I think that just is more of a spotlight to them to for them thinking that they could make me feel embarrassed by my own story. That highlights things within themselves. So I did write a book. I did. And then after that situation at work and all the foolishness, I got so upset that I took it down. So I thought I took it down. But the
mhm.
thing about putting things on Amazon is
Okay.
they have other sellers. So the book is still available and people can still buy the book, which I don't
Mhm,
mind at all. I don't mind at all. The book is there to help people. It's just
mhm,
that that one situation happened in that season where I was through with everything. But am I still bothered by it? No. Was I really bothered by it then? No. It's just the
mhm,
audacity. I think you just got to take a step back and kind of let the audacity, the actions of other people kind of set in and digest
mhm.
it and then like process it and then keep moving. And I think that I kept moving and I didn't put the book back up. But then when I learned that it really wasn't down anyway, I just left it where it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah, that's why they say the internet is forever, especially with writing a book, which can be good and bad depending
Yes,
on how you see it, depending on
right,
where you're standing.
right.
Yeah, I know I had someone reach out to me today earlier this week asking about a book if it can be taken down just because they didn't like I guess
Oh,
what they said in the book and it was like, no, it's gonna stay up there. You can unpublish it, but if they printed so many copies of it and
copy.
those copies did not sell, they're
Hmm.
gonna sell them. And then after they
Yes,
sell them, your book is still gonna be up there or it's
yes.
gonna be sold elsewhere. So no, you really can't take it
You
down.
can.
You can change the contents of the book. You can
Yes.
republish it and say
Hmm.
something else, but no,
Right.
you can't really get rid of it. Um
Yes.
and I don't want people to hear this and think, oh, another thing to be worried about when publishing your book. I want
No.
you to hear as well, you know, one, you don't have to share everything, especially when
No.
it comes to a memoir. You don't have to say everything, you don't have to share everything. You can be
Mhm.
transparent and still
Right.
keep some stuff to yourself.
Yes.
And then two, what's your reason for sharing? You know, you said you wanted to share to help others. Um, and I've had to tell an author, and I was sharing this with a editor who I had on, is, you know, sometimes we think we're writing a book about our life to share with others, and really it's just to heal ourselves.
It's
It's really
just
not for others.
yeah.
Um, especially, you know, I had someone who said, Aurelia, this is my life story. And it became, it's your life story, but if your purpose is to share it with others and to help others, it needs to be helpful. We
Yes.
don't like we I and I didn't know how to say it in a helpful way, and so I just,
Yes.
we don't care about X, Y, and Z. How
No.
is you going through these things going to help me? Like,
Yes.
are you going to
Yes.
think about me in this, or are you only thinking about
Right.
yourself?
Exactly.
And if
Yes.
you're just thinking about yourself, maybe keep it to yourself. I don't
Yes.
know.
Yes, or do like the Oprah did, write it and then burn it, or write
Yeah.
it and then delete it. Like, but I did half the
Yeah.
book was my story, and the other half was the book of the book was what I learned from my obstacles. So that's
Mm,
why I put it that way. It was like part one and part two. But
that's
because I didn't
good.
want to make it seem like it was just all about me venting, or else
Mm.
I could have just kept that in a journal. I did want it to be
Mm.
helpful.
Yeah, and that's important. I like that you shared that because that's the way to do it. Share your
Mhm.
story and then share the lessons. Like, how did you overcome that, or are you still overcoming?
Yes.
You know, and these are things that we have to be honest with, because when you're expressing yourself, again, what's the purpose
Right.
behind it? Are you just saying it just to say it? Which that's fine. There's room for that too. Or are you saying it to be helpful? And if
Right.
it's to be helpful, what part of what you're saying is going to be helpful? You
Right.
know, and so that's something that we also have to think about as creatives. Is what's the reason? What is the reason? You know,
Yeah.
for that. Okay. Well, hey, this has been such a meaningful conversation. Is there
Yes.
anything else that you would like to share?
I would definitely say if you identify with anything we talked about today and you're finding yourself in a hard space or between a rock and a hard place, or maybe you're just like, I'm just lost, that's okay. There is a website called Psychology Today. And that is good for the whole United States. And I think it's even in other countries. All you got to do is go on that website, enter your zip code. You get to filter by gender, by beliefs, by insurance. If you don't have insurance, who is offering sliding scale, whatever. If you've ever thought that maybe I just want to have a consultation with a therapist, or I'm thinking maybe I could do medicine in the future, but I'm just not ready for that, and you just want to start with therapy, well, that's a great place to start. That website is for anybody to use. And I always explain it to my patients as it's kind of like a Facebook for therapists. You get to see their pictures, read about their biography, how long they've been in practice, what their specialties are, and some even offer free 15-minute consultations. So, which is nice because you get to see if y'all have the vibe together, or if you need to keep looking. So I always tell them pick at least 2 to 3 therapists or psychologists, counselors that you're interested in, and try them out, especially if your job offer, what is it, EPA or EAP or something through your insurance, you get the first 3 free. And then if you decide not to stay with that person and start seeing somebody else, it starts over. So you get another 3 sessions free until you decide on who you want to start seeing. So no harm, no foul. So try it out, see what's in your area. And if that opens, if you're kind of like, I don't care if I have to go to somebody's office or if I can do sessions through the computer, that opens you up to the whole state, because whatever state you're in, your Blue Cross Blue Shield, your Aetna, whatever, is through the whole state. So if I'm in Charlotte and I'm in North Carolina, I can find a therapist that's in Asheville. It doesn't really matter. Long as they're in North Carolina and they're board certified through North Carolina, you can see anybody in your state. So Happy healing journey. If you ever wondered about, don't be nervous to start. It is nerve-wracking. It is going to require some work, but if you're ready to change, that's a great place to start.
That's it for today's check in. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, hit that subscribe or follow button, and let's keep growing together. Hey, and if you're tuning in on YouTube, drop your after emoji in the comments and tell me what shifted for you. I'll see you next time on Miss Win Checking In, where creativity is a pathway to wellness.